What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Lock and Cash podcast. This is an exciting episode this week. We have a lot to get to. I'm going to go through 3 game breakdowns, give you my leans on 3 huge football games this weekend, and then we're going to get to some system stuff and also a long shot at the end of the video. How about that Thursday night football game last night? If you saw my video that I posted on here, I had the Cowboys minus 5.5. Yeah, that's a tough loss. Honestly, I can't complain too much. If you think about it from the perspective of we're 3 weeks into the season and I'm coming off of that Sunday that we had. So on week 3 Sunday, we went 6-1. Then I lost on the Jags on Monday night. And now this brutal beat on the Cowboys. But really, if I think about it, through 3 weeks, I've had 2 bad beats, right? It was the Titans in week 1 getting 4.5 with the pick 6 that Levis throws at the end of the game. And then last night. So honestly, I feel like 2 pretty bad beats through 3 weeks is basically on schedule. Like that's kind of par for the course. I don't think it's that crazy. So I'm not going to complain too much, but it was kind of tough, especially because if it's just some kicker, it's whatever. But because the guy just couldn't miss, like the guy, he never missed a kick in his career past 50 yards. So because it was that guy, it made it a little bit worse, but it is what it is. I'm excited for this weekend. I've already released 4 NFL plays. 2 of them are 2-unit plays. We've released 5 college football plays already. We have a 2-unit going tonight in the Virginia Tech Miami game. We have a 2-unit tomorrow as well, a couple of 2-units. So if you guys want to get on board, I will drop offers down in the description. So if you're interested, just go there, but let's get right into the games. Okay. So first one I'm going to look at here is the game of the week. Quite possibly, honestly, the game of the entire season, Georgia versus Alabama. We might not see a game this good for the rest of the year, as crazy as that sounds, sitting here in week 5. But Georgia now minus 1.5 on the road in Tuscaloosa. And the interesting thing about this game, opened 2.5 in certain spots, has been bought down a little bit now, kind of teetering 2, 1.5, 2, but now settling in at 1.5 across most books here. And it obviously the big thing that jumps out, Alabama as a home underdog. The last time they were a home dog was 2007. So this is quite a unique spot, not much data on it. But Alabama at home, usually a pretty good bet. I believe they're 59. Where is it? Yeah, 59-2 in their last 61 home games. The 2 losses were to that LSU team with Joe Burrow that eventually won the Natty. And then last year, Texas. Remember, last year, Texas went to Tuscaloosa and got a win. So 59-2 run, pretty good. But yeah, 2 of the big powerhouses in college football, obviously. There's a few ways I like to break down games, right? When there's not a lot of data, not a lot of systems like this game, there's not a lot of information on how this spot will work out. You really just got to kind of look at situation, matchups, and how the teams, have looked so far through 3 games. So situationally, there's not really an edge on either side that I see. Both teams are coming off of a bye week, which is important because neither team has an advantage over the other. Maybe if you want to say the perspective of Alabama blew out Wisconsin on the road after Wisconsin's quarterback got hurt. Tyler Van Dyke goes down. He doesn't play for the rest of the game. Does that give them a little bit of an edge? Obviously, but maybe they would have blown them out either way. So that's one side you can look at. The other side is Georgia going to Kentucky and struggling in that game. As a 21-point favorite, they win by 1 point. And nearly lost the game outright. Is that good or bad? I can see both angles. I can say, there's some concerns there. And I can also see the angle of, that's probably a good thing because they're going to hear about that from Kirby Smart for the entire bye, right? And now come back extra motivated, extra revved up. So I could see it from both angles. But to me, the situational spot here is pretty much a wash since both teams are coming off of the bye. So I'm not going to, give it too much weight. But looking at Georgia's defense, right? Because this is the interesting matchup to me is Bama's, is how the defenses match up. They haven't allowed a touchdown yet this season. So that's the good part. Incredibly good at limiting explosive plays. They have barely, I think they haven't allowed a pass of over 25 yards, if I'm not mistaken, which is just insane. But their rushing defense is where you can get them a little bit. And that's how Kentucky had success. Outside the top 50 so far, per PFF, defending the run. They're going to try to limit Alabama's explosiveness on the ground. And Alabama, that's their one spot, right? Like if you're Bama, I want to run the ball in this game and I want to run it a lot, not only with the backs, but I want to run it with Milroe a lot too. In that SEC championship game last year, Milroe faced a lot of pressure and he was sacked a bunch. And obviously those sacks take away from your rushing yards. But if you remove the sacks, he rushed for almost 70 yards in that game. So he's going to be a threat on the ground. The running backs are going to be a threat on the ground and Georgia has to be ready for that. Carson Beck, I like as a quarterback. I like as a pocket passer. but just objectively hasn't faced a good any great pass rushes yet this season. Bama top 10 this year, pass rush getting to the quarterback. Could they disrupt him a little bit? That's a big concern for me. If I need a great performance out of my offensive line if I'm Georgia, because the one way you're going to beat this Alabama defense is you got to throw the ball. You have to attack their young, inexperienced, youthful secondary. Of course, they always have a lot of talent. This is a top program. They're going to have great recruits, great talent, but they're young back there. They've lost guys, turnover. That's where you have to go if you're Georgia. I got to be able to throw the ball, but I'm not going to be able to if I can't stop the pass rush. So those guys are going to be coming. Alabama's very good up front, very good in the trenches. So I don't think Georgia's going to have a ton of success running the ball here. I think they have to actually throw it in this game in order for them to be really effective. Then on the other side, in terms of, there's not many injuries in this game, but the one that I would watch out for is Mykel Williams. If he plays on the D-line for Georgia, that's a huge loss if they don't have him ready for this game, but it looks like he might or might not. It looks like it's a toss-up at this point. But on the other side of the ball, Alabama, how they got to attack Georgia is they have to run the ball. For the first time this year, they're going to have a fully healthy offensive line, which is a great plus for them. Actually, they had pretty much a fully healthy offensive line versus Wisconsin, but you saw the difference in that game versus the game that they played against South Florida. That game was much different when they didn't have their starting O-line all together. So big plus for them to have the bye. Everyone's rested, and now their actual starting O-line group is going to be together. I think that's going to really help their rushing attack, like I said, both for the backs and for Milroe. So that's very important. They need to be able to break off explosive plays, explosive runs against Georgia. I'm not going to sit here and say I love the matchup for Milroe throwing the ball because Georgia has done a really good job defending the pass, but they're going to have to run. They're going to have to get chunk plays, 4, 5, 6 yards on these runs and move the chains and sustain these drives in order to keep that Georgia offense on the sidelines. When it comes down to it here, the big question for me is, like I said, can Georgia do enough in the passing game? Remember, they don't have McConkey this year. He's in the NFL. They don't have Bowers this year in the NFL. They have dropped off a little bit in terms of the skill position talent that they have. So for me, the biggest thing is, can they sustain that? Can they pass against this Alabama offense not only effectively, but consistently throughout the game? They don't have anybody on this team, by the way. I have it in my notes here. Georgia doesn't have a single receiver with 2 catches of over 25 yards. So it's been spread out, and it's been a lot of short stuff. They're going to have to get it done through the air against Alabama. The interior is really good, but the secondary is where you can get them. Then on the other side, it's all about how many plays can Jalen Milroe make. He is the heart of the offense, the engine. Ryan Williams is a great weapon on the outside. They seem to have a good connection, but this is all about Milroe. He played pretty well in the SEC championship game last year that Alabama won. He's going to have to do that again in order to avoid the whole revenge thing that maybe Georgia wants to get revenge. And I like DeBoer, by the way, as a coach. I know Saban's gone, but I feel like if you watch the 3 games that Alabama has played, and I bet on the Wisconsin game, so I watched that, and I watched some highlights from the other games, I almost get the feel that they purposely have not shown too much. You kind of know what you're getting with Kirby and Georgia, but I feel like Alabama has purposely held back a little bit, and Kalen might be unloading the kitchen sink in this game and throwing out some stuff that we probably haven't seen all year long, which you kind of have to do in these types of games, right? You can't be predictable. So, at the end of the day, though, to the number, I make it basically a pick. On the money line, I make it maybe like minus 115-ish to Alabama, small favorite to Alabama. It's really tough to get for me to get to this number with them as a dog at home. And this money line has come down. I got it earlier in the week at plus 110. That's where I'm going with this. Bama money line plus 110. I think I'm seeing minus 105s now, and maybe some even money. But I lean Alabama in this game. I'm on them in this game, so. I just think I can get to this number, and I think they have enough advantages where they can get by here at home for a huge win. Okay, another college football game. We got a big one here with Illinois versus Penn State. And Illinois comes into this game a perfect 4-0. And last week, when they got that huge win against Nebraska, I was on them in that game, Illinois +8. But I'll be the first to admit, it was a little, right? It was a little suspect. They had to come back in the fourth quarter. They were down. Had to make a bit of a comeback. Defense held up. Excuse me. Altmaier was able to make plays with his arm, send the game to overtime, and then steal the win in overtime. But go back 2 weeks as well. Home dog. I think they were +5-ish at home against Kansas, and it's kind of a similar situation. Pulled that game out in the fourth quarter as well. So you kind of got this Illinois team that has basically been outplayed for 2 weeks straight, but has won both games. So they're sitting here at 4-0 when they easily could be a 2-2 team. Now, let me ask you this. If Illinois comes into this game with a 2-2 record, what's this point spread? It's currently 17.5, right? Minus 17.5 to Penn State at home. I think it's over 3 touchdowns. I think this is 21.5 if they're coming to this game at 2-2. So I think you have value here on Penn State at home. This is a massive step up in competition for both sides of the ball for Illinois. All right. And Altmaier has looked good. He's looked better than I thought this year, right? Better than he looked in previous seasons. But I can't trust him against this Penn State secondary. And Penn State in the trenches in this game, man, on both sides of the ball, offense and defensive lines, should just absolutely dominate. Another thing to mention, turnover luck is something I always like to look at. +7 turnover margin for Illinois. It's just unsustainable, right? You can have a defense that's good at forcing turnovers, but there's a difference between that and between turnover luck or turnover margin. It's just too much. It's going to eventually swing back. I think this could be the game where it swings back. And then you got trends as well on this one. Unlike the Georgia-Bama game, you do have trends here. James Franklin as a double-digit favorite is 64% against the spread in his coaching career. There's a system here, I believe, about 2 ranked teams when the spread's over 2 touchdowns. The favorite covers at a north of 60% clip. I really like this matchup for Penn State. I think it's a little bit of a letdown spot for Illinois. Night game in Happy Valley. I think you lay it here with the Nittany Lions minus 17.5. A little bit of a shorter one there. Not much to go over in that game. All right. Now we swing over to the pros, baby, the NFL. And I'm going to take you guys to the game of the week because that's what we do here. Sunday Night Football, the Bills versus the Ravens. Baltimore laying 2.5 at home. And this is a great matchup between two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Basically, after Mahomes, this is number 2 and number 3. And here's how I'm looking at this game. Because remember, it's all about handicapping styles, right? Because some people are going to look at this and say, you give me a player as good as Josh Allen with the way they're playing as an underdog, I'm taking it. I'm just taking it, right? And that's like my approach with Mahomes. Mahomes has gotten to the point in my power ratings, handicapping, however you quantify players, however you assign value to players or teams, he's gotten to the point where if you give him to me anything under -3, I'm taking him, like automatic. That was my reasoning last Sunday night against the Falcons. Last year in the Super Bowl, that was my reasoning. They were +1 or +2. I said, you give me anything with Mahomes -3 or less, I'm just taking him. That's it. So there are some people that look at this and say, Josh Allen, he does have a good record as an underdog. But I like the Ravens in the spot, and I'll explain a little bit why. I think in my power ratings, I have them 4th. So they're that's a little bit unique 3 weeks into the season. They are a 1-2 football team that I think is a very misleading 1-2. And I actually think they're a lot better than we've seen on the field. This is going to be the first big road test for the Bills. Perfect so far, 3-0 coming into this game. The blowout, by the way, on a Monday Night Football, totally ugly game, horrific. They didn't have to do much in that game. And they've been really rush heavy, which I like for them in the long run. I like that as a game plan going forward. They need to continue to be rush heavy, continue to utilize James Cook the way they've been doing. But I think that Baltimore here has a sneaky edge where, number one, they haven't been great against the pass, but they've been good against the run. So I think they could actually have some success here slowing down that aspect of Buffalo's game plan. And I think that the product we've seen on the field for them is not as good as they actually are. It takes time sometimes to adjust to a new defensive coordinator. Remember, McDonald is now the head coach in Seattle. So they have Zachary Orr now in Baltimore, and it just takes time sometimes to kind of adjust a little bit here. So I think they can maybe stifle the run a little bit better than you would expect. And they also play a lot more zone this year. So Josh Allen, after the Monday night game, all of the talk was, man, Jaguars getting absolutely obliterated in the secondary. Well, the Jaguars play a ton of man this season through the first 3 games. And Allen is just, that's it. Once you give him a few weapons and it's man coverage, he's going to kill you every time because of his ability to extend the play. So someone's going to get open at some point, and he's so good at that. And it really, really hurt Jacksonville. But Baltimore's going to be sitting back in a lot of zone in this game. And not to say that Josh Allen can't play against the zone, but he's certainly less effective in his career. If you look at his stats, certainly less effective against zone looks versus man coverage. So I think Baltimore could maybe have a little bit of a bounce back with their second. I mean, their secondary was good against Dallas last week until the fourth quarter, where they kind of let off the gas a little bit, which is inexplicable to me, but they seem to do that a lot over the last few years. But I think, like I said, I think there's some sneaky good matchups there for them. And then on the other side of the ball, it's all about Lamar, right? And Derrick Henry and how they utilize their weapons. But I think they can have success on the ground. Remember that Buffalo linebacking core without Matt Milano now and without Terrell Bernard and also Taron Johnson is going to be missing from this game. A little bit. This is the first matchup where I think that could be exploited, because remember, week 1 was actually the closest matchup to what they're going to see this week, right? That was Arizona. Arizona put up a bunch of points on them and was in that game and led that game by 2 touchdowns at one point. And obviously their defense is horrific, so they couldn't keep the lead. But my point is, Arizona had success. Then you go into week 2, they stifle the Dolphins, and then Tua gets hurt. And then last week, Jacksonville was just never in the game. And Lawrence just looks horrific. So this is going to be their biggest test, because Lamar is playing really well. The Ravens have been good at home. You're getting him under a key number here of a favorite of less than the field goal, which, by the way, 23-7 against the spread in his career. That's 76%. Primetime Lamar, 14-7. That's 66% against the spread. It's a tough game to call for sure, but I lean Baltimore. I wouldn't be surprised. I can't tell you I'm going to be shocked if either team wins, but I kind of have this sneaky feeling that Buffalo comes back down to earth a little bit, and this maybe is maybe this is like a double-digit win. Maybe this is a 10-point win for the Ravens, a 13-point win for the Ravens. I like Baltimore in this spot. I'm going to lean them minus the 2.5. Okay, just went through 3 games pretty quickly, too. We're not bad on time. System of the week before we get to our long shot parlay. System of the week here is in the NFL. Okay, we're going to look at underdogs. And I actually am going to be posting a short of this. So if you guys want to head over to YouTube Shorts and check it out there, or TikTok or Instagram, all the socials will be down here linked. But underdogs, right? So teams that are listed currently as dogs that were also dogs in the previous week, but pulled off the upset by 17 or more points. So they had to have won as a dog by 3 scores or more in the previous week. And now our underdogs, those teams are just 96, 146, and 5 against the spread. That's 39.7%. So this is a fade spot for 2 teams this week. The 2 teams are the Broncos, who won outright in Tampa. They're now +8 against the Jets. In New York, or in New Jersey, actually, Jets have a rest advantage in that game. Remember, they played on Thursday Night Football. So you got Rodgers on extended rest, which is a good ATS trend. You got this system, which is a good ATS trend for the Jets. Really, really tough spot for the Broncos there. I think the Jets win and cover that game. Now, the next one here is a little bit more tricky. It's Minnesota +2.5 on the road in Green Bay. So if you want to follow this system and take the Packers, you just got to, make sure. Well, you can't really make sure, but it all comes down to the health of Jordan Love, right? If he plays and if he's effective and healthy the way he normally is, then the Packers should win and cover that game. But listen, the Vikings have just been insane. I mean, the Vikings have just looked amazing through 3 games. So I understand if you say, for the purposes of the system, I'm not going to touch that. I get it, because they have looked unbelievable getting them as a dog. And they're sitting right. I mean, it is a little weird to me. They're sitting right there at the 2.5. Like this got to 3, came back down. The books are kind of leaving it there at that 2.5. It creates it so appealing for a teaser leg, right, to bring them up to 8.5. But if Jordan Love plays, does Minnesota finally put up a stinker? They lose by 10 or more. I mean, these are the risks that you take. You have to think these through, right? You have a 3-0 team coming in, getting 2.5. It's like, it's almost there. Like, wow, that's too good to be true. I could tease them up to 8.5. I don't know. Jordan Love coming back. This system tells you that they're probably due for a bad game. We'll see what happens. But the 2 teams per this system, which is a roughly 60% system, the 2 teams that you would bet on are the Jets and the Packers. All right. Let's get to our long shot parlay of the week. I got to hit one of these. It's early in the season, but we got to hit one. All right. And I actually like this one this week. It's just money line. We're just going, it's not money line. We're going with just sides here. Sides on this parlay. It's a plus 1,000. So $100 will return $1,000. We're going first up. Okay. With the Falcons minus 2.5 in that game against the Saints. I do lean Atlanta in that game for several reasons. I did post a video about the referee situation in that game. Also, the Saints, a lot of offensive line injuries. I think the Saints are not done regressing. They regressed against the Eagles. I think they're not done. We had the Eagles in that game. I love the spot for them. And I think they got a little more ways to come down, because they're not that team you saw in weeks 1 and 2. I know everybody was probably fooled. Well, a lot of people were fooled. And even I was considering, like, is this what they're not that team. So, all right, Falcons minus 2.5. Then I'm going to go with 2 money lines. The Chiefs, this one's very straightforward. Don't be scared by this line coming down, by the way. It was 8.5. It's now 7. A plus 8.5 dog at home, even with a backup quarterback, sharps are going to hammer that most of the time. Most of the time, that line's going to be an inflation to the favorite. So sharps taking that down from 8.5 to 7 is not concerning to me. The Chiefs should still win, and honestly, they probably cover the 7. But I know Heineke could be a little feisty, so, whatever. But the Chiefs should win that game. So Kansas City money line. And then I got Bengals money line. I know some people are scared of this. There's also sharp action on Carolina. But remember, there's sharp action on both sides of this game because this number is at 4.5 right now, and it was at 3.5. So you get, it was like 5 or open to 4.5. It's down 3.5. Now pros on the other side buy back on the Bengals. So there's guys on both sides of these games. I think Cincinnati is too good to be 0-4. The Bengals are coming off of that crazy. Yes, you get the initial boost of when you bring in the quarterback, right? You bring in Andy Dalton comes in, he's a vet. You get that initial boost, but now the Bengals are going to be ready for him. They know him pretty well too, right? So he was there for a long time. I like the Bengals in this game too, and I just see how the Panthers are going to stop them. So Bengals money line. Then the lean I just gave you on Sunday Night Football, Ravens minus 2.5. So now you're sitting with 4 legs, right? You've got the Falcons minus 2.5, Chiefs money line. You've got the Bengals on the money line, and you've got Ravens minus 2.5. And then we go to Monday night. Hopefully those 4 hit, and you get put in this situation on Monday night where we're taking the Lions money line. Okay, that spread's 3.5. I like them to win the game. Seattle's kind of a fluky 3-0. That's a conversation for another day, but I like the Lions on the money line. And then you're sitting there with, hopefully you have this plus 1,000 ticket that needs 1 leg to cash. You can go Seattle. I think they're like plus 160-ish. You can hedge with Seattle money line and guarantee some profit, which is always a good strategy if you're doing these. Now, when I do these are like minuscule bet. Like if I'm doing a long shot, it's going to be a quarter of my regular unit or less. So if your regular unit is 1% of your bankroll, right? Let's say you have a $10,000 bankroll, that's $100. This would be like a $20 bet. So this is like a quarter or less of your unit that you put on these long shots. And honestly, I just put them in here because they're number one, they are fun, something to sweat out, and a lot of people ask for them, to be honest, because we just give out sides and totals, but a lot of people ask, you got any teasers? We do teasers sometimes, but you got any parlays? Do you like any touchdown scorers? So we've implemented touchdown scorers this year as well. But that's my long shot of the week for week 4. Okay, that's it, guys. So just to quickly recap, Alabama, Penn State, Baltimore Ravens, and the long shot, which I just gave you guys. I've got plays already out, like I said, for Friday college football, for Saturday college football, for Sunday NFL. There's going to be more coming. I got to finalize some capping that I'm doing some of these games, but we've got some out already. And like I said, if you guys want to join, down in the description, there'll be links for you guys. But other than that, we will see you next week. Thanks for watching.